Okay, Brooklyn said, looking down at me. Well, I'm gonna need you to get real fucking specific with me. Exactly what did you see on your little vision quest? I already told you, I replied. I was in someone else's body. I was someone else. This Talius guy. I was in a keep with a woman named Celine and you, sent there by the Illuminati to guard against monsters, werewolves, vampires, and such. And the keep was attacked. I didn't get to see most of the fighting. I arrived as everything was basically coming to an end. I guess you could say I became him sometime shortly after he took a very sharp stab wound to the gut and was running through the halls looking for Celine. After he found her, and you, he guided all of you, or I guided all of you, out of the keep through a secret tunnel, a passageway. From where we were standing in the keep, it was 2 lefts and a right down the hall, from where you tackled that werewolf through the door, stabbing him through, and then beating him the rest of the way to death with a torch that you pulled off the wall. I didn't really believe that we were going to escape, but I wanted to try anyways. We made our way through the passage, exiting into the woods, and started to run. Unfortunately, with my injury, I was slowing you down. It was only getting harder to move as time passed. I told you and Celine to leave me, to go ahead, and I'd try to buy you some time. But you adamantly refused, saying I had to live, that I had a tab to pay off at the bar, and I needed to live to pay it. Right after that, we got jumped. I was thrown for a loop somewhere, and by the time I came to, there was a werewolf gnawing on your shoulder. And after he got done using you as a chew toy, he went for Celine. I jumped in between them, but it was basically useless. He got to her anyways, tore a hole straight through me, and hit her too. He got both of us in a single shot. If the absolute pain of having an arm through your chest wasn't enough, I could also feel his pain. The moment he turned around and realized that it didn't matter, that he got Celine anyways, it was soul-crushing. Emotional devastation on top of agonizing pain. And I got the privilege of feeling it all. That's when, apparently, you came to, shoving a blade through his back. With the last ounce of strength that I had, I helped you pull the blade up through his sternum, basically chopping him in 2, long ways. After that, I just collapsed. The last thing that I remembered, or perhaps I should say that the last thing I experienced, was myself reaching out to that woman, trying to reach her just one more time before it all faded. It seemed so important, like it was the only thing that mattered, being able to be with her. There, in the end, I said, staring down at the floor. I could still feel it, the desperation, the desire. I was still having a hard time shaking off those emotions as I sat there trying to reacquaint with my own world. So that's it then. He died right there, reaching for Celine. And that's all there was to it? No other thoughts in his head? And your little vision quest came to an end? No. There's actually one more thing that's actually confusing me a great deal more. Yeah, and what's that? The fact that after everything went black for a moment, At the very end, there suddenly was a bright flash of light. I was flooded with the feeling of being cold, being handled by large people, massive, or at least that's the way it felt. Blinding light, screaming. I remember a deep sense of terror. I was so scared. I didn't understand what was happening, where I was. By the time that my vision began to clear up, I remember the sensation of being held, of being warm, and I saw my mother holding me in her arms, looking down at me with a smile. And that is when my little vision quest ended, at the beginning of my own life. Quite frankly, that, more than anything else, is the part that's throwing me for a loop. What the hell does that mean? Why? It doesn't make any sense. It was at that point that Brooklyn Scott took a few steps back, leaning against a bookshelf in Mr. Hollowfield's office, taking a pack of cigarettes out and lighting one up. I don't see what's so confusing about it. Oh, what? I replied. What the hell are you talking about? What wouldn't be confusing about that? It's simple, kid. It's the passage, the doorway from one life to the next. You still haven't gotten it. And here I was thinking you were sharp. Don't you understand? It's the same soul, the same life experiences. That's why it was all part of the same vision, because it's the same person. You get me? In case you're still not able to follow along, you are Talius. That's what your little vision is telling you. Talius's life ended. His soul re-entered the cycle of things and was reborn into a new life. To be more specific, reborn into your life, he said, lighting the cigarette in his mouth up and taking a long drag. In other words, you and Talius are the same person, the same soul separated by 2 lifetimes. To be honest, I had heard about the passage a long time ago, that not all souls stay in the afterlife. Sure enough, some choose to go to heaven, some get dragged to hell against their will, and some go to other worlds and other places. Hell, some even refuse to let go of life altogether, becoming spirits, haunting the world of man. But some souls decide to give it another go-round, to re-enter the cycle of life. After passing through the ocean of death, they emerge here in the world again. A new life, new family, all because they either didn't believe in heaven or hell, or there's something drawing them back to life. It could be countless different things that can draw a spirit back to the world of man. But, based on Talius, I'd say there's really only one reason that I could think of that he'd want to come back. Selene. Him and Selene never got their happily ever after. They met in combat, fell in love in the midst of war, and died before they ever got to have a life together. They died right there in front of me that night. The same night that I was given the gift, you might say. That's the night I became a werewolf. So, you see, it's very simple. If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say that your soul chose to re-enter the cycle at this point in time because Selene's soul chose to re-enter the cycle at this point in time. I knew Talius. He'd have followed Selene right into the mouth of hell if it came down to it. So following her into another lifetime absolutely seems like him. To be honest, now that you say it, now that I've heard your little Vision Quest story, it all just makes too much sense. From the moment I met you, something struck me about you. You know what it was? We basically met the same way. Back when you were Talius, me and him getting in a fight over Selene. I was trying to chat her up, and you had only just, well, become acquainted with her, so to speak, and stepped in front, acting as her valiant knight, despite the fact that Selene really didn't need it. She was a tough girl, a fighter, so protection wasn't something that she really needed. But you offered it nonetheless. That was how we met the first time around. And here we are for round 2. And what do you know? We met again, under the same circumstances. I may not have been trying to make a pass at your Selene this time, but I was bothering her a bit. Because if you're Talius, a man whose heart belonged to only one woman, who quite literally followed her back into the cycle of life in order to be with her, and if the rumors I've heard about your marriage to Miss Renee being true, then that really only leaves one option. That I'm standing in the presence of 2 reincarnated souls, both of which I knew. If you're Talius, that means, he said as he looked over to Renee, that means chances are you're Selene, my 2 best mates, born again. You know, it's funny. Now that I know, it all seems to make much more sense. Selene could never stand me either. She always thought I was a bother. Honestly, I think she only ever put up with me because I hung out with Talius. And I didn't notice it at all. Now that you pointed out, you have so much in common with Selene. She had a dark personality too, loved poetry, especially the gloomy kind. She was stubborn and had many other characteristics that you have, Renee. Same goes with you. I bet if I actually spent the time getting to know you, you'd have, well, let's just say, a remarkable amount in common with the man that I once knew as Talius. Tell me, you've been a fighter your whole life, haven't you? From the time that you were a little kid, you saw somebody having a fight, and it just struck you that was what you wanted to do. And from that moment on, you dedicated yourself to it. Made yourself a warrior, a damn strong one, right? As he said the words, my own life flashed before my eyes, and he was dead accurate. From the moment I first saw a martial arts movie, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a martial artist, a warrior. Yeah, it all makes sense now. You know, destiny's a funny thing. The first time we met, I was just an arrogant bloke. Barely knew how to hold a sword. You basically had to teach me everything. I had the attitude, sure, but not the talent. I had nobody to teach me. I was there on guts and willpower. And now here we are, back in the same situation, but the roles are reversed. This time I'm the one with the experience, the years of training, the knowledge, the ability, and you're the amateur, trying to press his way through with nothing but sheer willpower and determination. Before you had your little vision quest, we made a deal. Information in exchange for a favor. Well, I'd say that your little explanation of your vision quest explained more than enough about what your power was. At least for the moment. I'll consider your end of the bargain covered. he said as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic charm of sorts, holding it out to me. And here's my end of the bargain. Good for one favor, specifically from me. Keep a tight grip on it, he said as he grabbed my hand and placed the charm inside of it. Okay, Victor. Last time, our story didn't end so pleasant. Let's see if we can change it this time around. Hey, Hollowfield Sr., he said, looking over to Renee's dad. Do me a favor and give these two my number, he said as he turned around, heading for the door. Wait a second, we had business. Yeah, well, consider our business done. I just got a whopper of crap that I need to think over. I was gonna try to negotiate a better deal, but screw it. Go with the original terms. It's a bit of a loss for me, but honestly, I'd rather take it. Because quite frankly, I'm a little bit lost in myself at the moment, he said, staring at the doorway out of the room. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do if I had to stick around here right now. So, I'm gonna go. I think the loss is worth it, in order to keep myself from doing anything foolish, he said as he opened the door, walking out and closing it behind him.